Hi, I'm Max Keiser. This is the Keiser Report. Just when you thought it couldn't get any more bizarre. Stacey Herbert.
Max, I'm eating your cake.
You're eating my cake?
Yeah.
How? Tell me more.
It's really good because apparently you can have your cake, you can eat it too, and you can eat your friend's cake, and your other friend's cake, and some Joe Bag of Donuts cake.
Wait a minute. I've got some cake here myself. Oh, yeah.
Hey, you can't be eating your cake. I'm eating it here.
No, I'm eating your cake over there. You've rehypothecated my cake over. You understand what I'm saying? Tell the people. Tell the people.
I see. That was really sweet, that cake of yours. MF Global and the Great Wall Street Rehypothecation Scandal, Max. If anyone thought that you couldn't have your cake and eat it too in the world of finance, MF Global shows how you can have your cake, eat it, eat someone else's cake, and then let your clients pick up the bill.
I love it. This modern finance is really fantastic. I can have cake that I myself have rehypothecated through the magic of derivatives trading and then re-eat it again, even though I just ate it because I just re-loaned it to myself through the magic of rehypothecation. And I never have to pay anybody. I just keep eating.
I'll define for everybody what hypothecation is and then what rehypothecation is. Hypothecation is when a borrower pledges collateral to secure a debt, very similar to a mortgage. The borrower retains ownership of the collateral, but is hypothetically controlled by the creditor who has a right to seize possession if the borrower defaults. Now, rehypothecation occurs when a bank or broker reuses collateral posted by clients to back the broker's own trades and borrowings. The practice of rehypothecation runs into the trillions of dollars and is perfectly legal. It is justified by brokers on the basis that it is a capital efficient way of financing their operations.
Yes, well, people don't realize that when they sign a new account form, or a margin account to be more precise, it gives the firm that they're doing business with this ability to hypothecate and rehypothecate.
Yes, and that in fact was with the MF Global clients. They did sign a form that allowed MF Global to rehypothecate their funds. Now, the problem arose when in the U.S., it's bankers and brokerages are only allowed to rehypothecate 140% of their collateral held by their clients. In the UK, however, there's no limit. There's no statutory limit to the amount that they can rehypothecate. So MF Global, through London, had rehypothecated all these sovereign bonds over and over and over and over.
Yes, well, when I first heard about this loophole in the UK securities law that rehypothecation could happen infinitely in this continuous Mobius strip house of mirrors of fraud, my left eyeball popped. As you can see, I'm practically bleeding out of my eyeball. I had such an unbelievable gobsmacked moment. No wonder the UK has enjoyed this debt to equity or debt to GDP ratio of 1,000%. They simply keep reselling the same slice of cake and then loaning against that slice of cake and reloaning against it in an infinite amount of time. And everybody in the UK is, of course, drunk by 5 o'clock in the afternoon because they're busy rehypothecating their securities to infinity. They haven't had to work a day in their life for 10 years.
Well, some are speculating that the reason why the Fed came in with all those swap lines was actually because of this rehypothecation. By 2007, rehypothecation had grown so large that it accounted for half of the activity of the shadow banking system. Prior to Lehman Brothers' collapse, the International Monetary Fund calculated that U.S. banks were receiving $4 trillion worth of funding by rehypothecation, much of which was sourced from the UK. With assets being rehypothecated many times over, known as churn, the original collateral being used may have been as little as only $1 trillion, a quarter of the financial footprint created through rehypothecation.
Well, what's incredible, Stacey, is that, of course, David Cameron just got booted out of Europe recently because he's an incompetent idiot. But basically his reasoning and what he told the BBC and what the BBC in turn told the people of Britain is that David Cameron was safeguarding their financial system. What he meant to say, or failed to say, was that he's safeguarding the ability of the UK city of London to engage in this massive, infinite series of rehypothecation Ponzi scams that have decimated the balance sheet of the United Kingdom, and why that country's debt is now on suicide watch.
Well, Max, what the article says is because a lot of this rehypothecation is off balance sheet and you don't know what the collateral is, and you don't know how many times it's been pledged over and over, they say what this creates is chains of counterparty risk where multiple rehypothecation borrowers use the same collateral over and over again. Essentially, it is a chain of debt obligations that is only as strong as its weakest link. Now, as you mentioned, this is allowed because of the UK and the City of London. But here in the U.S., where you have these the Republican presidential debates happening, everybody is focused on this $10,000 bet that Mitt Romney made Rick Perry. But nobody's talking about the rehypothecation, that the threat that the City of London is posing to the entire economy of the U.S. and where all of this arose from.
Right, just to be clear, this kernel of fraud, this rehypothecation scandal, and the loophole that David Cameron is safeguarding by abandoning his European partners is the kernel that is responsible for the AIG meltdown, the Bernie Madoff scandal, the collapse of Lehman Brothers, and now the collapse of MF Global. This all went through the City of London and this rehypothecation kernel of massive infinite fraud. So by shutting that down would be the first step the globe needs to take if it wants to get the global economy back on sure footing. You need to shut down the City of London before there's going to be any hope of any stability in the global markets.
But here's where it gets very, very scary, okay? There's hyper-hypothecation as well now. With weak collateral rules and a level of leverage that would make Archimedes tremble, firms have been piling into rehypothecation activity with startling abandon. A review of filings reveals a staggering level of activity in what may be the world's largest ever credit bubble. And the biggest participant of this hyper-hypothecation, Max, JP Morgan, almost more than $500 billion in rehypothecation just this year alone.
Right. Well, we know that JP Morgan off balance sheet has $90 trillion in derivatives. And they say that these derivatives are completely covered through counterparty coverage and through the magic of value at risk accounting. What they don't tell you is that they've got trillions of unhedged rehypothecation risk on their balance sheet, including massive naked short sales in the silver futures contracts markets. So JP Morgan, as we've been saying on this show, really is worth less than zero, and one day it will go the way of Enron and wake up and the stock price is at zero.
In light of all of this hyper-hypothecation happening via JP Morgan, they're in the next headline, Max. JP Morgan chases Jamie Dimon, strikes back at populist anger. So this week here in the United States, he was speaking at a Goldman Sachs sponsored event, and he said, acting like everyone who's been successful is bad and that everyone who is rich is bad, I just don't get it. So with that, though, he sounded an awful lot like somebody else from history, Al Capone. Al Capone in 1927 said, I am going to St. Petersburg, Florida tomorrow. Let the worthy citizens of Chicago get their liquor the best they can. I'm sick of the job. It's a thankless one and full of grief. I've been spending the best years of my life as a public benefactor.
Oh, absolutely. Jamie Dimon has been the drug dealer and liquor provider in chief for a number of years, and now he's complaining. He said the strung out, drunk, and socially, uprising that is resulting as the result of his irresponsibility, his flagrant disregard of the law, and his transgressions on just about every securities law ever been written, is resulting in him now complaining that, oh, what's the matter? You don't like my booze? You don't like my drugs?
Well, Max, as the Thomson Reuters piece pointed out, that this rehypothecation, which dwarfs the global economy, has been providing all the liquidity, but they do note that it's liquidity backed by no assets.
Well, that goes back to 2008 when the conversation was, is this a liquidity problem or an insolvency problem? And Hank Paulson and Wall Street said, well, it's a liquidity problem. We just need some short-term cash to hold us over. It's not an insolvency problem. We're not technically insolvent. We now know that they're all insolvent and that they're simply rehypothecating the same, a bag of nuts that they hold in their office drawer to leverage, multi-trillion-dollar loan scams going back and forth. And the people who are being asked to suffer through austerity are being asked to suffer through austerity as a result to pay for all of this. That's why there is a global insurrection against banker occupation.
Because of this absence of justice, we're going to see these same frauds over and over again until the population demands that happen, rather than focusing on whether or not Mitt Romney's betting $10,000 against Rick Perry. So finally, Max, here, all of these fraudsters still in charge of all these banks rehypothecating and hyperhypothecating. Number of the week, finance's share of economy continues to grow. So the number of the week is 8.4%. And this is the financial sector's share of gross domestic product in the U.S. That eclipses the peak hit in 2006. In 1950, by comparison, the financial sector accounted for just 2.8% of GDP.
Right. Well, as the financial cancer kills off pieces of the body, it's therefore a bigger percentage of the body. And there's no way to fend it off. Nobody's stopping it.
And remember, Steve Keen had said that the maximum number that it should be is 4% according to mathematical models.
Well, according to the model, that would encourage actual labor creating actual manufactured goods in a real economy. You don't want the banking sector not to be more than 4 or 5%. To be 10, 20, or 30%. In the UK, if you were to factor in all the industries that are controlled either directly or indirectly by the City of London, it's almost 50% of the entire GDP of the UK is conducted by the hypothecating fraudulent kernel that is the City of London under the non-regulation of the FSA, the SFO, and David, numbnuts Cameron.
My final word here is I'm going to eat Alec Baldwin's cake here. And we'll see how funny it is to go bankrupt. He doesn't realize how easy it is to go bankrupt here. He's making fun of American Airlines for being bankrupt. I'll show him how it happens. You see?
Oh, Alec Baldwin. Yes.
There he is going bankrupt. Oops, Alec Baldwin, I'm eating your cake.
Very good, Stacey Herbert. Well, that's excellent. Thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Thank you, Max.
Don't go away. Much more coming your way, so stay right there.